Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a band that is, at its core, a complete paradox. Queens of the Stone Age. For 3 decades, they've basically been a rock and roll revolving door, a project defined by constant chaos, but somehow guided by one single, unwavering constant.
And that brings us to the big question, right? How in the world does a band with only one consistent member, a band that has seen dozens of musicians come and go, become a legitimate rock institution? How does something so defined by change stay so anchored?
Well, that singular vision, it all belongs to this guy, founder, guitarist, and vocalist Josh Homme. He is the anchor in a decades-long storm of creative and sometimes very real chaos.
To really understand this story, we've got to go back. It doesn't begin with a new band, but with the explosive end of another one, way back in the mid-90s, out in the heat of the California desert.
So, after his pioneering band Kyuss dissolves, Homme starts fresh. He packs up, moves to Seattle, even tours with the legendary Screaming Trees for a bit, and starts a new project called Gamma Ray. But yeah, that name didn't last long. A German metal band had something to say about it. The new name actually came from a nickname their producer used for Kyuss, and it just perfectly captured Homme's whole musical philosophy right from the jump. See, it wasn't about being the kings of the scene, it was about creating something bigger, something more inclusive, like a party everyone was invited to.
And on that very first Queens of the Stone Age album, he put that philosophy into action immediately. It was pretty much a one-man show, with Homme playing almost every single instrument himself. He was laying the foundation, brick by brick, for the sound that would define everything to come.
Okay, so with the full lineup now in place, including former Kyuss bassist Nick Oliveri, the band's identity really starts to solidify. And this is what sets the stage for a massive mainstream breakthrough and, true to form, a whole new wave of chaos.
Their next 2 albums, Rated R and Songs for the Deaf, just launched them into the stratosphere. I mean, they signed to a major label, they're getting huge airplay, and then, for Songs for the Deaf, they bring in a secret weapon, Dave Grohl on drums. The result was an absolute monster of an album, critically and commercially, that made them one of the biggest rock bands on the planet.
But here's the thing about this band. Even at their absolute peak, the chaos was always part of the story. After what Homme called their worst show ever at a German festival in 2001, the core members bonded in a really weird way. They all got matching tattoos of the start time, Freitag, 4:15, just to forever remember the disaster.
But this commercial peak was immediately followed by a huge internal crisis that really threatened to end the band for good. Just think about that. At the absolute height of their fame, the very lineup that created their masterpiece completely imploded.
And at the heart of that crisis was an incredibly painful decision. Homme fired his longtime friend and collaborator Nick Oliveri over allegations of domestic abuse. It was a move so difficult that Homme has said he seriously considered just pulling the plug on the whole band.
But instead of quitting, he chose to rebuild. The journey ahead, though, wasn't just going to be about a new lineup. It would be marked by a profound and nearly fatal personal ordeal.
The band did carry on. They released Lullabies to Paralyze in 2005 and Era Vulgaris in 2007. And while the music was still there, Homme would later describe this period as the band's absolute lowest point. A confusing, difficult era that would end up culminating in a crisis far more personal than any lineup change.
And then, in 2010, everything changed. During what should have been a totally routine knee surgery, complications arose, and Josh Homme's heart stopped right there on the operating table.
Doctors had to use a defibrillator just to revive him, but his fight was far from over. He then contracted a life-threatening MRSA infection. He was bedridden for 4 months, fell into a crushing depression, and really came to a crossroads where he was seriously thinking about ending his entire music career.
But from this absolute rock bottom, this brush with death, came this unexpected and incredibly powerful rebirth for both Homme and the band that he had nearly given up on. He took all of that pain, all of that trauma, and the slow, difficult process of recovery, and he poured it directly into the creative fuel for their 6th album, an album that would be so fittingly titled Like Clockwork.
And the result was a masterpiece. It was vulnerable, it was dark, it was powerful, and in 2013, it became the band's first ever #1 album in the United States. Talk about a commercial peak being born from a personal valley.
Now, what's really ironic is that this period of immense personal turmoil actually ushered in an era of unprecedented stability. After years and years of a constantly revolving door of musicians, the band settled into its most stable lineup, which, you know what, remains together to this day.
So, after all the chaos and all the lineup changes, what is it that makes a Queens of the Stone Age song sound so unique, so instantly recognizable? Well, Homme actually has a name for it. He calls it robot rock. The whole idea is to take the hypnotic, repetitive nature of trance and electronic music, but deliver it with the raw, heavy force of a hard rock band. It's kind of like a trance you can headbang to, a sound that feels as mechanical as it does human. So the sound is really built on a foundation of these driving, repetitive guitar riffs. But Homme often uses these unorthodox scales, totally avoiding the typical blues rock cliches. And this creates the band's core contrast. You've got his smooth, almost crooning falsetto vocals gliding over that heavy, angular music, while the songs themselves shift dynamically from a whisper to a roar.
And really, it all comes back to that founding principle. The goal from day one was to create a band with no creative limits. A band that could be anything it wanted to be on any given day. You know, heavy enough for the boys, sweet enough for the girls.
From the ashes of his first band, through massive mainstream success, firings, and a literal near-death experience, Josh Homme's journey has been about navigating chaos to create something that truly lasts. And now, with their most stable lineup ever, the only question is, what comes next for the Queens of the Stone Age?